Julian Huppert.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. I'll try to be brief so that we can conclude this debate. I do support this bill for the reasons that have been set out admirably by honourable members from all sides. I'm always very concerned about any form of exceptional legislation. It's always something we should be extremely guarded about for whatever the reason is. This is a case of exceptional legislation, but I understand absolutely why we need to have it. There is no issue with that. But I do have a number of concerns about police bail in a wider sense, as has been discussed. So I won't focus specifically on the legal niceties of the Hookway case, that's been discussed already, but I do want to say a few things about police bail in the wider sense. So firstly, this bill is clearly a necessary clarification of the law. There's no doubt about that. Looking at previous legislation, the Hookway case, it's a matter of interpretation. Best thing to do is to make interpretation easier for any future judges and any other lawyers. It tempts me to talk a bit about how legislation is drafted in general in this country, which doesn't always seek to avoid some of these problems, but I'll restrain myself from doing so in any great detail. My one concern was particularly about the retrospective nature of the clause, saying these amendments shall always have had effect, and I would like to place on record my gratitude to the Home Secretary for clarifying that issue in her earlier remarks. But I do just want to flag it now that we should be very, very cautious and very carefully examine anything which purports to be retrospective. We shouldn't just allow it to sail past. We should ask the questions carefully as to what the rationale is for that. One question I didn't put to the Home Secretary, though perhaps the Police Minister will be able to respond on it, is a topic I'm normally not very interested in, which is about the Royal Diary. And do we have clarity on exactly when we'll be able to get royal assent on this bill? And I hope he'll be able to comment on that. But I would like to state a little more about the urgent need for wider reform in this area, which I hope the government will return to and not end with this particular issue. So my second point is I think it was absolutely right for a number of leading lawyers today, including the former Solicitor General, to raise concerns about some of the abuse of police bail. Now, I don't agree with their comments about this particular bill, where they call for it not to go through. I think it is absolutely necessary. But I do think the Home Secretary needs to bring forward greater safeguards for abuse of these wider powers. The bill returns us to a position where there's no statutory time limit, as we've already discussed, and there is the issue about the number of conditions that police can have. And that does mean that police bail can be very oppressive. And I'm particularly concerned about that in the context of peaceful protest. In the last couple of years, we have seen a number of cases of the use of preemptive arrest before planned, legal, peaceful protests. We have the case in 2009 of 114 environmental protesters who were arrested at the Iona Independent School in Snainton, Nottingham. They were arrested shortly before a planned protest at Neon Power Station. They were then released without charge on police bail, preventing them from getting involved with the protest. This allows, potentially, restrictive police bail conditions, give police the cumulative power potentially to extinguish the right of peaceful protest, something we should all wish to see and support. This is the case for time-sensitive demonstrations. And there was a similar case of police bail during the occupation of Fortnum and Mason on the 26th of March this year, which I have discussed in the Home Affairs Select Committee. And I actually agree with Liberty and with honourable members who said that we should look at a time limit. I think that time limit should be proportionate both to the complexity of the case and to the severity of the case. Those are matters which would affect how long one should be prepared to look at that. Obviously, this is not the bill to do the details of that. We couldn't do it justice. But I do hope that we could look at this through the plethora of other Home Office bills currently coming through Parliament. It would be very simple to do it via the Protections of Freedoms Bill or the TPIMS Bill, as has already been referred to. I do hope one could also look at the issue of bail for immigration purposes in that context, because there are some questions there which I think need to be looked at. But let me just briefly mention one of the things that's also currently missing from police bail powers. A slightly bizarre lacuna that was introduced, I believe, by the last government, which is that pre-charge police bail is not allowed at all in terrorism-related cases. I think it is important for us to mention this on today, the 6th anniversary of the London bombings, because we have, I believe, made a mess of how we deal with terrorism cases. We have warehoused people under a system outside the normal legal framework. And I have argued that we should be using the police bail system, which offers similar restrictions and controls to what is proposed in control orders and TPIMS. It differs in detail, of course, but does fit within the normal legal framework. And I was delighted with the comments of the Shadow Home Secretary, who stark comment to the Shadow Minister in the TPIMS bill, where she agreed that police bail should be explored where it can be used for terrorist offences. And that is a great step forward. It may not be appropriate in every single case, but I think we should have a system with appropriate safeguards via the Home Secretary's application, as I've outlined in that committee, so that police bail could be used where possible for terrorism cases. That would help to move us towards a normal legal process. I well understand the urgency of passing this legislation. I do not wish to detain this House any longer. I do urge the Home Secretary, when this rush is over, to consider very carefully all of the issues that have been raised and the importance of getting police bail right. We do need to make sure that we safeguard peaceful protest. We do need to improve our national security. We do need to restore our liberty. It would be great to do all of that at once. I believe that we can use police bail, we can control it better, we can use it in terrorist cases to get us due legal process, security and liberty, and more of the normal rule of law.